Breaking: Adam Pearce just robbed Seth Rollins of the World Championship in the most corrupt decision in WWE history. I am absolutely furious right now, and you need to hear this because what Adam Pearce just did on Monday Night Raw is the most corrupt, unjust, and disgraceful abuse of power I have ever witnessed in professional wrestling. Adam Pearce, WWE's general manager, just stripped Seth Rollins of the World Heavyweight Championship without a match, without a vote, without any legitimate justification, and the most sickening part is that the vision of the faction Seth created, the wrestlers Seth mentored, stood behind Adam Pearce and supported this absolute theft of Seth's championship. And here's what's making me absolutely enraged: Seth Rollins earned that championship. Seth worked his entire career to hold that title. Seth defended it against all challengers. Seth did everything a champion is supposed to do. And Adam Pearce just took it away from him in what can only be described as a conspiracy orchestrated by the Vision members who Seth trusted, who Seth elevated, who Seth gave everything to. This is the most blatant case of backstabbing and corporate corruption I've ever seen, and I am livid that WWE would allow this injustice to happen on live television. But I need to know from you right now, are you as outraged as I am that Adam Pearce stripped Seth of the title, or do you think there was actually legitimate justification for this decision? Should Seth have any legal recourse to get his championship back? Is this the most corrupt thing a WWE authority figure has ever done? And how can the Vision members live with themselves after betraying the man who made them? Tell me right now in the comments, because what I'm about to reveal about the real reasons behind this decision, the conspiracy that led to Seth losing his title, and how this could permanently destroy Seth Rollins' career is going to make you absolutely furious. Let me take you through exactly how this travesty unfolded, because every detail makes this situation more outrageous and more clearly reveals the conspiracy against Seth Rollins. Raw opened with Adam Pearce in the ring looking extremely serious and uncomfortable. He had a microphone and he immediately announced that he had important business to address regarding the World Heavyweight Championship. The crowd was buzzing with anticipation. Nobody knew what Pearce was going to say, but his tone suggested it was something significant. Pearce said, "Last week, incidents occurred involving Seth Rollins and the World Heavyweight Championship that have forced me to make a decision I never wanted to make. As general manager of Monday Night Raw, I have a responsibility to ensure the championships are defended fairly and that champions represent WWE with integrity and professionalism." Already, Pearce was setting up his justification for what was coming. He was framing this as a difficult but necessary decision rather than what it actually was: a corrupt power play. Quick question: do you trust Adam Pearce as an authority figure, or do you think he's shown favoritism throughout his tenure? Tell me in the comments. Pearce continued, "After reviewing footage from last week's show, after consulting with WWE officials, and after considering all factors, I have made the decision to strip Seth Rollins of the World Heavyweight Championship effective immediately." The crowd erupted with boos. This was not what anyone expected. Seth Rollins was one of WWE's most popular champions. He'd been having incredible matches. He'd been elevating the title. And now Pearce was just taking it from him? But Pearce wasn't done explaining his reasoning, and what came next revealed the true conspiracy at play. Adam Pearce laid out his justification for stripping Seth of the championship, and with each word it became more clear that this was a setup, a conspiracy, and an abuse of authority. Pearce said, "Last week, Seth Rollins failed to appear for a scheduled championship defense. When a champion is scheduled to defend their title and doesn't show up, WWE policy states that the champion can be stripped of the title for breach of contract and failure to fulfill championship obligations." The crowd was booing because everyone who watched last week knew this was nonsense. Seth didn't fail to appear. Seth was attacked backstage before his match by unknown assailants and was unable to compete due to injury. But Pearce conveniently left that part out. He was framing Seth's absence as a voluntary decision rather than Seth being the victim of an attack. Pearce continued, "Additionally, Seth Rollins has been involved in multiple unsanctioned altercations backstage that have created unsafe working conditions for other WWE superstars. A champion must conduct themselves professionally both in the ring and outside of it. Seth's recent behavior has fallen short of that standard." This was outrageous. Seth had been defending himself against attacks from the Vision members who had been targeting him for weeks. Seth wasn't creating unsafe conditions, Seth was responding to threats against him. But Pearce was spinning the narrative to make Seth look like the problem rather than the victim. Do you think Adam Pearce's justification holds any water, or is this clearly a biased, corrupt decision? Tell me. And then came the most disgusting part of this entire segment. The part that proved this was a conspiracy from the start. Pearce said, "I want to make it clear that this decision wasn't made lightly. In fact, I consulted with several WWE superstars who have worked closely with Seth Rollins to get their perspective on his conduct and his fitness to be champion." And then the Vision's music hit. The members of the Vision, the faction that Seth created, the wrestlers that Seth mentored, walked out from the back and stood on the stage looking at the ring where Pearce was standing. The crowd was booing intensely because everyone immediately understood what was happening. The Vision had conspired with Adam Pearce to steal Seth's championship. Pearce continued, "These men have worked alongside Seth Rollins. They've seen firsthand his behavior behind the scenes. And when I asked them whether Seth Rollins deserves to be World Heavyweight Champion, they were unanimous in their answer, no. The Vision members nodded in agreement, standing united in their betrayal of the man who gave them everything. And then the Vision walked down to the ring and stood behind Adam Pearce, literally backing him up as he stripped Seth of the championship. The visual was sickening, the Vision members supporting the authority figure who was stealing their mentor's title. Have you ever been betrayed by people you mentored or helped? How did you handle it? Tell me in the comments. At this point, Seth Rollins' music finally hit and Seth came storming out from the back looking absolutely furious. Seth had the World Heavyweight Championship belt over his shoulder, his championship that he earned, and he marched down to the ring with intensity and anger radiating from every step. Seth got in the ring and immediately got in Adam Pearce's face. The Vision members stepped forward like they were going to protect Pearce, but Pearce waved them back. Seth grabbed a microphone and his first words were, "You have got to be kidding me. Adam, you're really going to stand here and strip me of my championship because of some made-up justification?" The crowd was roaring their support for Seth. They knew this was wrong. They knew Seth was being robbed. Seth continued, "I didn't fail to appear last week. I was attacked. I was laid out backstage and couldn't compete. That's not my fault. And you want to punish me for being the victim?" Pearce tried to respond but Seth cut him off, and as for unsanctioned altercations, "I've been defending myself against them." Seth pointed at the Vision members. "These traitors have been attacking me for weeks and I'm supposed to just take it. I'm supposed to just let them destroy me without fighting back." Seth was making perfect sense. His arguments were logical and justified. But logic and justice didn't matter in this corrupt situation. One of the Vision members grabbed a microphone and spoke up, defending their betrayal of Seth and their support of Adam Pearce's decision. The Vision member said, "Seth, you created the Vision to be your servants, to do your bidding, to make you look good. You never cared about us as individuals. You never cared about our careers or our goals. You only cared about what we could do for you." This was revisionist history and a complete lie. Seth had mentored these wrestlers, given them opportunities, elevated their profiles. But the Vision member continued, "You're not fit to be champion because you're selfish. You're narcissistic. You care more about your own glory than about doing what's right for WWE. We're supporting Adam Pearce's decision because we believe WWE deserves a better champion than you." The crowd was booing this transparent justification. Everyone could see through the lies. But the Vision members stood firm in their betrayal. Another Vision member added, "Seth, we're not betraying you. We're doing what's right. You've become everything you claim to hate. You've become the selfish, self-centered wrestler who puts himself above everyone else. Stripping you of the championship is the wake-up call you need." This was gaslighting at its finest. The Vision was pretending they were doing Seth a favor by supporting the theft of his championship. Do you believe any of the Vision's justification, or is this clearly just lies to justify their betrayal? Tell me your take. Seth Rollins listened to the Vision's justifications and his response was perfect and showed why he deserves to be champion. Seth said, "You know what? I don't care what you think. I don't care what Adam Pearce thinks. I don't care what WWE officials think. This championship," Seth held up the title belt, "is mine. I earned it. I defended it. And nobody is taking it from me without a fight." The crowd exploded with cheers. This was the response everyone wanted from Seth, defiance in the face of corruption. Seth looked directly at Adam Pearce. "Adam, if you want this championship, you're going to have to pry it from my hands. I'm not just giving it to you because you made some corrupt decision in a backroom deal with these traitors." Pearce looked uncomfortable but stood his ground. "Seth, I understand you're upset, but my decision is final. You are no longer the World Heavyweight Champion. If you don't relinquish the title belt right now, I will have security forcibly remove it from you and I will suspend you indefinitely from WWE." This was Adam Pearce threatening Seth's entire career to enforce his corrupt decision. Seth stared at Pearce for a long moment. The tension was unbearable. Was Seth going to give up the title? Was he going to force Pearce to follow through on his threat? What would you do in Seth's position? Would you give up the title or force them to take it? Tell me in the comments. Seth slowly took the championship belt off his shoulder and held it in his hands, looking at it. You could see the emotion on Seth's face. This title meant everything to him. And then Seth did something that showed his character and his integrity. Instead of meekly handing the title to Adam Pearce, Seth laid the championship belt in the center of the ring and stepped back. Seth said, "I'm not giving this to you, Adam. I'm not handing my championship to a corrupt authority figure who's orchestrating a conspiracy against me. But I'm also not going to give you an excuse to suspend me and take away my ability to fight back against this injustice. So there's the title. Do what you're going to do. But know this, I will never acknowledge anyone else as the legitimate champion. That title belongs to me." It was a powerful moment that showed Seth's defiance while not giving Pearce the excuse to suspend him. Adam Pearce looked relieved and called for security to come collect the championship belt. Security entered the ring, picked up the title, and handed it to Pearce. Pearce held up the championship and said, "This title will be awarded to a new champion through a tournament that will begin next week. The World Heavyweight Championship will be defended and held by someone who represents WWE's values and meets the standards we expect from our champions." The crowd was booing relentlessly. This was corruption happening in real time on live television. And then the Vision members did something absolutely disgusting that proved their betrayal was premeditated and malicious. They celebrated. The Vision members started clapping and cheering Adam Pearce's decision. They were acting like this was a great moment for WWE and for the championship. One Vision member grabbed the microphone and said, Finally, WWE has a chance to have a champion who deserves it. Seth Rollins' reign of selfishness is over." They were reveling in Seth's humiliation. They were enjoying seeing their mentor stripped of his championship. Seth stared at the Vision members with a mixture of disgust and hurt. You could see the betrayal hitting him emotionally. These were people he trusted, people he elevated, and they were celebrating his downfall. The Vision members then did something even more disrespectful. They approached Adam Pearce and shook his hand, thanking him for doing the right thing and having the courage to stand up to Seth Rollins. The visual of the Vision members shaking hands with the authority figure who just stripped their mentor of his championship was sickening and revealed the depth of this conspiracy. Have you ever seen a more blatant case of conspiracy and corruption in WWE? What's the worst example you can think of? Tell me. Seth Rollins stood in the ring watching all of this unfold. He was outnumbered. He'd just lost his championship. The people he trusted had betrayed him, but Seth didn't break down. Seth didn't show weakness. Instead, Seth looked at each Vision member individually, then looked at Adam Pearce, and then looked at the championship belt that was no longer his. Seth grabbed the microphone one last time and said, "This isn't over. Not by a long shot. You can take the physical belt from me, but you can't take away the fact that I'm the champion. I'm the best wrestler in this company, and I will prove that by winning whatever tournament you set up and taking my championship back." It was a promise and a threat all at once. Seth then added, "And as for the Vision." Seth stared at the faction members, "You made the biggest mistake of your careers. You betrayed the wrong person. And I promise you, you will all regret this decision." Seth's music hit and he walked out of the ring, heading to the back while the Vision and Adam Pearce remained in the ring with the championship belt. The segment ended with the Vision standing tall, having successfully conspired to strip Seth Rollins of his championship, while Seth disappeared through the curtain, his championship stolen but his determination intact. Now let's break down what actually happened here, because the conspiracy against Seth Rollins goes deeper than what was shown on television. Based on backstage reports and connecting the dots, here's what really happened. The Vision members had been planning to betray Seth for weeks. They approached Adam Pearce and pitched the idea of stripping Seth of the championship. They provided Pearce with justifications and excuses for why it would be legitimate. Pearce, who has had his own issues with Seth in the past, was receptive to the idea. But he needed a reason to strip Seth that wouldn't look completely arbitrary and corrupt. So the Vision orchestrated the attack on Seth last week that prevented him from defending his title. They were the ones who attacked Seth backstage. They created the situation where Seth failed to appear for his championship defense, giving Pearce the excuse he needed. This was a premeditated conspiracy from start to finish. The Vision didn't just betray Seth, they framed him and created the justification for stealing his championship. That's not just betrayal, that's criminal. That's conspiracy to commit fraud. That's corruption at the highest levels. Did you suspect the Vision was behind the attack on Seth last week? Tell me if you saw this coming. Later in the show, Adam Pearce announced the details of the tournament to crown a new World Heavyweight Champion, and surprise surprise, all of the Vision members were entered into the tournament. This revealed the real motivation behind the conspiracy. The Vision didn't just want Seth stripped of the championship, they wanted to steal the championship for themselves. The tournament bracket was announced. Multiple Vision members in different brackets. Some other WWE wrestlers to make it look legitimate. A structure designed to maximize the chances of a Vision member winning. Pearce presented this as a fair and open tournament, but everyone watching could see it was rigged from the start. The Vision had multiple chances to win the championship while other wrestlers had to fight through a gauntlet. One of the Vision members was even given a first-round bye, meaning they advanced to the second round without even having to wrestle. How is that fair? This tournament wasn't about crowning the best champion, it was about legitimizing the theft of Seth's title by giving it to one of his betrayers. The backstage reaction to this decision was reportedly intense, with many wrestlers privately expressing disgust at what happened to Seth. Several wrestlers reportedly approached Adam Pearce backstage and questioned the decision. They pointed out that Seth was attacked and couldn't compete, that he didn't fail to appear voluntarily. But Pearce stuck to his decision, reportedly saying that the championship is bigger than any one wrestler and that WWE needed to send a message about professional conduct. Those justifications are nonsense and everyone backstage knows it. This was corruption pure and simple, and Pearce is trying to cover it up with corporate doublespeak. Some wrestlers reportedly considered boycotting the championship tournament in solidarity with Seth. But ultimately, everyone entered the tournament because they couldn't afford to miss the opportunity for a championship run. That's exactly what Adam Pearce and the Vision were counting on, that individual career ambition would overcome collective solidarity with Seth. Do you think other wrestlers should have refused to participate in the tournament in protest? Tell me your opinion. My prediction? Seth will use a combination of these strategies. He'll disrupt the tournament while also building alliances and potentially pursuing official channels to get his championship back. Which option do you want Seth to pursue? Tell me your strategy. Let's talk about why the Vision betrayed Seth, because understanding their motivation is key to understanding this storyline. On the surface, the Vision claims they betrayed Seth because he was a bad mentor and a selfish leader. But that's obviously not the real reason. The real reason is jealousy and ambition. The Vision members looked at Seth as World Heavyweight Champion and thought, that should be me. They saw Seth in the spotlight and wanted it for themselves. But instead of earning a championship opportunity through hard work and winning matches, they took a shortcut. They conspired with a corrupt authority figure to steal the championship from Seth rather than beating him for it fairly. That reveals everything about the Vision's character. They're not heroes fighting against an unjust leader. They're cowards who couldn't beat Seth fairly, so they resorted to corruption and conspiracy. The Vision members will try to justify their actions by claiming Seth deserved it or that they were doing what was necessary. But the reality is they're just selfish, ambitious wrestlers who betrayed their mentor for personal gain. That makes them villains, not heroes, regardless of how they try to spin the narrative. Do you think there's any legitimate justification for the Vision's betrayal, or are they purely villains in this story? Tell me. This situation has interesting parallels to other times WWE authority figures have abused their power to strip wrestlers of championships. Remember when Vince McMahon stripped Daniel Bryan of the WWE Championship after WrestleMania XXX? Or when various authority figures stripped champions throughout WWE history for arbitrary reasons? Those moments were always controversial because fans recognized that championships should be won and lost in the ring, not through backstage politics and authority figure decisions. But this situation with Seth is even worse than those historical examples because there's a clear conspiracy involving other wrestlers. It's not just an authority figure making a unilateral decision, it's wrestlers collaborating with the authority figure to steal a championship. That adds layers of corruption and betrayal that make this one of the most egregious abuses of authority in WWE history. The only positive is that historically, when wrestlers have championships stripped from them unfairly, they eventually get redemption and win the title back in a huge moment. We can hope the same happens with Seth. This storyline exists within WWE's larger creative direction and raises questions about authority figures, fairness, and justice in professional wrestling. WWE has a long history of corrupt authority figures, Mr. McMahon, the Authority, various general managers who abuse their power. It's a classic wrestling trope. But under Triple H's creative leadership, WWE has generally moved away from authority figure storylines in favor of wrestler versus wrestler storytelling. So this Adam Pearce corruption angle represents a return to classic WWE storytelling about evil authority figures abusing power. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing depends on your perspective. Some fans love authority figure storylines because they create clear villains and give wrestlers something to fight against besides just other wrestlers. Other fans hate authority figure storylines because they take focus away from in-ring competition and make everything about backstage politics. I'm personally in the middle. I think authority figure storylines can work if they're done well and lead to satisfying payoffs. The key is that the corrupt authority figure eventually gets their comeuppance. Do you like authority figure storylines, or do you prefer straight wrestler versus wrestler feuds? Tell me your preference. Here's a critical question: will whoever wins the tournament be seen as the legitimate World Heavyweight Champion? In my opinion, no. Whoever wins the tournament will always have an asterisk next to their reign because they didn't beat Seth Rollins for the championship, they won it through a corrupt process after Seth was illegally stripped. The championship has been tainted by this process. Until someone actually beats Seth Rollins in a match for the title, the championship will lack legitimacy. That's exactly why Seth's storyline probably leads to him eventually regaining the championship in a huge moment. WWE needs to restore legitimacy to the title, and the only way to do that is to have Seth win it back definitively. But in the meantime, whoever holds the championship is going to face constant questions about whether they're the real champion or just a paper champion who got the belt through corruption. If you were a wrestler and won the tournament championship, would you feel like a legitimate champion? Tell me honestly. The fan reaction to this segment has been exactly what WWE wanted: passionate, divided, and generating tons of discussion. Some fans are outraged on Seth's behalf. They're posting on social media about the injustice. They're demanding Seth get his championship back. They're threatening to stop watching if WWE doesn't resolve this properly. Other fans are intrigued by the storyline. They're interested to see where it goes. They appreciate the drama and the complexity of the Vision's betrayal. Still, other fans are defending Adam Pearce and the Vision, arguing that Seth did deserve to be stripped for his recent behavior and conduct. That division among fans is exactly what makes this compelling storytelling. Everyone has a strong opinion and everyone is invested in seeing how it resolves. WWE has successfully created a situation where fans care deeply about the championship and about Seth's journey to reclaim it. Seth Rollins' journey from here is going to be about redemption, about proving he's the rightful champion, about getting justice against the conspiracy that robbed him. This could be a months-long storyline that builds to a massive payoff at a major event like Royal Rumble or WrestleMania. The key is that WWE doesn't rush it. The longer Seth is separated from the championship, the more meaningful his eventual reclamation will be. How long do you think it should be before Seth wins the championship back? Tell me your timeline. Adam Pearce stripping Seth Rollins of the World Heavyweight Championship with the Vision's support is one of the most corrupt and controversial decisions in recent WWE history. It's compelling storytelling that has fans emotionally invested and eager to see resolution. But it's also frustrating because we're watching injustice happen in real time. Seth Rollins deserves better. He deserves to hold that championship. He deserves to lose it in the ring to a worthy opponent, not have it stolen through backstage politics and conspiracy. But the good news is that this injustice sets up Seth's eventual redemption to be that much sweeter. When Seth finally reclaims his championship and gets justice against the Vision and Adam Pearce, it will be one of the most satisfying moments in WWE. Until then, we have to watch Seth fight against corruption, conspiracy, and betrayal. And we have to trust that WWE will deliver a satisfying conclusion to this story. Smash that like button if you're outraged by this injustice against Seth Rollins. Subscribe to Wrestling Newsletter for continued coverage of this corrupt storyline. Turn on notifications so you don't miss updates on Seth's fight for justice. This is Wrestling Newsletter, and I'll see you in the next video as we continue demanding justice for Seth Rollins and holding Adam Pearce and the Vision accountable for their corruption.